The one thing, they always vote in unison. You don't see somebody that's holding up, I'm going to hold up. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing.
In our most recent video, I mentioned that Donald Trump spoke last night at the National Republican Congressional Committee dinner about his calamitous global tariff policy. But the speech itself deserves its own video because it was a disaster. Trump was visibly nervous and panicked the entire time, very often lashing out at the Republican lawmakers whose support he needs to effectuate his agenda. It is very clear that on some level, the widespread backlash is getting to Trump, and he's starting to crack. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to play from this dinner. Again, even by Trump standards, this betrayed his insecurity about his current position. But to really set the stage, I just want to refer to this Axios report. Scoop: a dozen House Republicans mulled defying Trump on tariff bill. At least a dozen House Republicans are considering signing on to Republican Representative Don Bacon's bill to restrict the White House's ability to impose tariffs unilaterally. Why it matters: it's a significant break with Donald Trump, who has threatened to veto the bill should it pass Congress. Bacon told Axios that 2 Republicans, Jeff Hurd and Dan Newhouse, and 2 Democrats have signed on the bill as co-sponsors. He added, quote, I have 10 others who want to do it, but they want to talk to the trade representative first. Now, this would be the first concerted effort, and a belated effort, quite frankly, by Republican lawmakers to try to claw back some of their constitutional authority on tariffs. Let's be very clear. Constitutionally, Congress has infinitely greater power over levying tariffs and removing tariffs than the President of the United States. It's just that they've gotten lazy and delegated that power to presidents, Democrats and Republicans. They've delegated substantially more latitude than Donald Trump, the person who deserves it the least. Now that they're starting to see the disaster come home, it looks like some Republicans are looking to break ranks. So that is the context for this. Trump risks an embarrassment. Yes, he can veto. It's unlikely that Republicans will find the spine to give Democrats a veto-proof supermajority, right? But this would be a slap in the face, a rebuke of Trump by a party that he has tried to break totally and make it into a cult of personality. So with all of that in mind, let's play some of these clips. We're actually going to start with Republican Congressman Tom Emmer, who had a very funny faux pas, or Freudian slip, when he was talking about Donald Trump before Trump spoke.
Not an option. President Trump is counting on us.
Did you catch that? Again, Freudian slip there. Republican Tom Emmer referring to Donald Trump as President Cunt. That's hilarious. So let's get into the man himself and his speech. Again, disastrous, betraying his visible insecurity here, at times lashing out at the Republicans themselves. We'll start with this one.
The one thing, they always vote in unison. You don't see somebody that's holding up, I'm going to hold up. And the alternative is hell. The alternative is hell. So the Republicans, just that one little thing the Republican Party has to do is get together and damn vote. If you're a single guy or a second guy, and you fight like hell for what you get, and then in the end you have to vote because the policy is phenomenal.
So that's Trump publicly panicking about the disunity in his caucus. And he says, the Democrats, they always vote together. That was much more common under the Biden administration than had been previously. I mean, the left and Democrats are constantly referred to and referring to themselves as a circular firing squad. Generally speaking, because it's much more ideologically diverse, because progressives hate liberals, liberals hate progressives, and it's like herding cats. The left and their closest political proxies, the Democrats, are more inclined to fight amongst themselves. But Trump is such an incompetent manager of the GOP and puts them into such disastrous positions that even the GOP has been rife with infighting over the past several years under Trump. But again, this betrays his nervousness. He's worried that there will be public defiance of his bill such that it won't pass. Maybe, maybe not. Let's play this other clip.
And then they say, and by the way, all paper costs 8% of the machines. Why is it that Republican governors aren't going to it, okay? What's going on with our Republican governors? If nothing else, you say, even if it was just the same, and it's not, nothing's foolproof when it comes to voting, but it's pretty close.
So there, Trump is bitching at Republican governors. He's like, why aren't you guys going to paper ballots for voting? Our voting system is pretty damn secure. Trump has claimed, of course, for years that the 2020 election was stolen because he can't handle the fact that he lost a free and fair election to President Biden. He was complaining that the 2016 election was stolen or rigged against him, even though he won the damn thing. It's a man who is too insecure to cope with the fact that he is fallible and sometimes he can lose, and he is not the beacon of popularity in the United States, and he's not. He certainly has a cult of personality, million strong within the Republican Party, and Republicans have done him a disservice and their party a disservice by letting him think or delude himself into believing that he's infallible. But again, the point is, he's using this time to bitch at Republicans. He is also a source of disunity in his own party, perhaps the single biggest source of it, and he doesn't realize it.
And that's what's happening, and that is what's happening. It's going to be something, and I'm actually looking forward to the midterms. I really are. We're going to prove that all of their treasonous years of betrayal will not be forgotten.
So again, a couple of things. Treasonous years of betrayal, he's stumbling over his words. That was inelegant at the bare minimum. He says, I really are instead of I really am. Again, just the guy is not at the peak of his verbal agility and vocabulary. But more than that, he says he's looking forward to the midterms. Well, listen, is it possible that the Republicans will have an excellent midterm showing? I suppose, but that would certainly defy political history. In the 2018 midterms during Trump's first term, it was a bloodbath for Republicans, politically speaking. Democrats swept. And in the 2022 midterms under President Biden, despite enormously favorable political headwinds, the red wave never manifested. It was more of a pinkish trickle, being generous. As a matter of fact, Democrats actually expanded their Senate majority. And Trump is underwater already. And his economic policies risk creating a recession. So as of this moment, he has no reason to be confident that his party will do well in the midterms, because the precedent is the exact opposite, and he's creating the conditions for a very punitive response by the American people against the GOP. Guy's not all there. Here's another clip.
The baseline, we call it. Companies are pouring back into our country with plants. There's a run on sites. There's a run on old plants. Most of them are being ripped down for new plants. They've stopped building in Mexico, 4 or 5 plants, and they're all coming into the United States. I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And you know what I'm doing, too. That's why you vote for me.
Not much by way of enthusiastic response. It was a delayed applause. It wasn't a particularly loud applause. It's very clear that deep down, these Republican lawmakers don't have confidence in Trump. They're afraid of him. They recognize that he's more powerful than they are, both in terms of his authority as president, but also his political power, that certainly most of the Republican base back Trump more than they do the Republican Party as an identity. So they're afraid of him, to be sure. They recognize how dangerous he is to their careers, if not their lives, because, of course, we heard all these stories about Republican lawmakers who defy Trump being threatened by Republican voters. I mean, Mitt Romney, when he was a Republican governor of Utah, he's retired now, but he had to hire private security because he voted to impeach Donald Trump. And Trump supporters threatened him and his family. That's the dangerous part of this cult. So again, they fear him, but they obviously are not confident in his ability to execute this deal. They stammer as much, on camera because, again, they're afraid of the consequences. But that applause, that delayed response and the muted applause really betrays that they don't have confidence in this guy. And that's why he's so panicked.
Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. China will. They want to make a deal. They really do. They want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get it started because they're proud people. China will now pay a big number to our Treasury. This is all taxes. And don't let them keep telling you that this is a tax on our people. I hate that. They say it's a tax. No, often much of it is paid. And hey, look what happened during my first term.
So a couple things. Again, he's like stammering there. He's obviously going syllable by syllable, moment by moment. He doesn't have a prepared speech in the way that we would think of. He doesn't really have a coherent policy that he can refer to, extemporaneously when he's speaking. He's struggling because he's just bullshitting, and he can't competently, coherently, cogently defend the policy that he's unleashed that will potentially politically cost his allies. And again, this idea, yes, tariffs are a tax. And yes, most of the time, most tariffs or the cost of the tariffs are imposed on the American consumer because retailers and other businesses don't want to absorb the cost into their profit margin. It's just a fact. Now, he's savvy enough to recognize, like, hey, if they keep referring to this as a tax, which it is, this could be politically damaging. And it will be politically damaging. What Trump did with his tariffs is effectively create the biggest peacetime tax hike on the American people in American history. Not just the rich, which is very popular, but middle and lower income families and households and people. That's not popular at all. And by the way, China announced their own 84% retaliatory tariffs, which went into effect this morning. That's what we did our first video on. So might they blink? I guess, suppose. But right now, not only are they not blinking, they're retaliating. This is a trade war that Trump started. Here's another clip.
In the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. In the history.
That's what I'm saying. He's panicking. He's lashing out at Republicans. How dare you? How dare you say that I need your approval or your support or anything like, I'm me, I'm God, I get to do whatever I want. Don't you dare step in my way. And again, this notion that countries are lining up to kiss his ass. I'm sure some are, right? I'm sure some are, given the recklessness and punitive nature of these tariffs, because they effectively have no other choice. But what about the countries that matter most, economically speaking, in terms of their ability to hurt the United States or that we're dependent on? Canada, Mexico, China, the European Union. What about them? We already have seen from the China and the European Union that they're retaliating against the United States. And again, Trump is just lashing out. It's so unhinged. Couple more clips will play, starting with this one here.
To have that happen to your son. And, it has a bad effect on a family, a bad effect. You okay, Don? I am, Dad, but I don't understand. They keep tying me to Russia. I don't know anything about Russia. He didn't know a damn thing about Russia. It's a disgraceful situation. That's why we got to kick their asses in the midterms, and we got to kick their asses again.
The problem is, well, for you, you're making that less likely with these disastrous policies. So one last clip of Donald Trump, again, complaining about, betraying his insecurity, complaining about the lack of support he's getting, worried that Republicans will rebel, which they might.
4 years ago, if we follow through on this agenda, we will be rewarded with a phenomenal economy and a massive victory at the ballot box in 2026, because we will have a record of triumph like no president has ever had, like no Congress has ever had. They will not be able to even touch your seat. Your seat is secure, and we'll pick up 40, 50, or even 60 seats, and we'll have something that's going to be smooth sailing for years to come. If we don't get it done because of stupidity or a couple of people that want to show how great they are, you just have to laugh at them or smile at them or cry right in their face. In 4 years.
Yeah. So again, folks, he's nervous. He's nervous as hell. Now, again, should the Republicans, defy him, he could veto. Again, that could be a politically costly veto. Like, oh my God, we tried to rein in Trump. Trump went out of his way to prevent Congress from undoing or mitigating the damage that he's doing. And it's unlikely that Republicans would have enough muster, would have enough spine and steel to give the Democrats or pair with the Democrats to create a super majority in both chambers, which is what you need. It's doable in theory. Like if the people actually voted their conscience and what they voted, they voted in alignment with what they actually believe about Trump's tariff policy, then yeah, he could veto all damn day and they'd crush it again and again and again and again, because virtually everybody in both chambers recognizes this is a stupid policy. But for the Republican majorities in both chambers, most of them fear Trump too much to publicly defy him. But again, it says something that he himself is nervous enough to spend so much of his time lashing out at the various Republican lawmakers on camera whose support he needs. He clearly feels the insecurity. He's panicked. But we'll see what happens. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.